Hello, everyone. Welcome to What It's Like. I'm Jay. We are back at John Kufleitner's, located just outside of Salem, Ohio, to take a look at this 1996 Dodge Viper. If you're new to the channel, we cover the classics, vintage, some exotics, lots of orphan cars, and cars that are off the beaten path. We dive in deep, give specs, show period correct ads, and show perceptions not seen anywhere else on the tube. If that sounds of interest to you, subscribe. Hit the bell icon next to it to never miss a video. If you need to get in touch with me for any reason whatsoever, two ways are the best ways. Leave a comment in the comment section below. I read every single comment that I get, and when you get a reply, it's from me, not a computer, not a secretary. It will always be that way. The second way is we recently made a Facebook group that correlates with this YouTube channel. There is no obligation to join the Facebook group, but the Facebook group gives you the opportunity to share your rides, stories, memories, and experiences, as well as it has spec sheets. Sometimes I put previews, the future episodes on there. It's definitely worth checking out. Link is in the description. Also, be sure to give this video a like if you totally dig the content so more people can see this video in the future. All right, let's talk 1996. Dodge Viper RT10 SR2. A little bit of background history on the Dodge Viper, not getting into the whole story because eventually we plan on doing a SR1 version Viper. This is an SR2, but just a little bit of background information. The Viper was initially conceived in late 1988 at Chrysler Advanced Design Studio. The following February, Chrysler President Bob Lutz suggested to Tom Gale at the design center that company should consider producing a modern-day Cobra. Remember the AC Cobra made by Ford in the 60s? Chrysler was always late to the party, so they were very late to the party on the whole Cobra aspect car, but they wanted to make their own version of it. They couldn't call it the Cobra, obviously, so they had to come up with a better name. I don't understand why all of these car companies are like, yeah, let's go for Snake. Snakes have a reputation of being jerks, you know, and turning on people. Sort of like this car, which we'll get to. Anyway, the Viper first made its appearance as a concept car at the North American International Auto Show in 1989. The public reaction was so enthusiastic that Chief Engineer Roy Schoberg was directed to develop it as a standard production vehicle. But then Chrysler chairman Lee Iacocca delayed approving the $70 million needed to put the sports car into production, saying it was a lot of money to spend without insurance of a financial return, which is funny because most everything that Lee Iacocca touched turned to gold, but there was something happening in the behind the scenes that was probably Lee Iacocca's biggest failure, and eventually the Viper covered it up. We're going to just lightly talk about it because not a lot of people know about this car that was a commercial failure. And Lee Iacocca spent millions and millions of dollars pumping it into this project, and it turned out to be a colossal failure. Just going to talk about this car lightly because it's so weird. Like, why would Chrysler even think about doing something like this? Well, anyway, it's called the Chrysler TC by Maserati. It was a jointly developed car by Chrysler and Maserati. It was poised to be a Grand Tourer. It was built on a Q-body platform. It was a modified generation of the Chrysler K platform. This was basically a convertible version of a Chrysler LeBaron. It used the Chrysler body style. I had to keep reading it just to make sure that I'm telling the right information. So Chrysler, they used the Chrysler engine inside these cars, and then the bodies were bodied by Maserati. You would think that it would be the opposite way around, but for whatever reason, they thought that this way was the best way, and it had a huge price tag, and it looked just like a Chrysler LeBaron. That's why they didn't sell that well. But anyway, moving back on to the Dodge Viper, they didn't have any money to put into the Viper project because they were pumping millions of dollars into this really weird pet project that it's just weird. Like, why would you think that this would work? All right, getting back to the Viper and the Viper origin story, Schoberg selected 85 engineers to be Team Viper with the development beginning in March of 1989. The team asked then Chrysler subsidiary Lamborghini. Yeah, you heard that right. Chrysler owned Lamborghini at one point in time. Chrysler goes to Lamborghini for them to produce a very special engine, V10 engine with an aluminum block for a sports car. They actually made a test mule. It was called the White Mule, and it was powered by a V8 engine. The V10 engine, which was going into production car, was ready by February of 1990. Official approval from Lee Iacocca didn't come until May of 1990. And by auto industry standards, $70 million wasn't a whole lot of money, but the potential, fantastic. 1 year later, Carroll Shelby piloted a pre-production car as a pace vehicle at the Indianapolis 500 race. This is huge. I don't know if you guys realize how huge this is. There's a couple other key players like Bob Lutz and Tom Gale. The Viper, it was designed by Tom Gale. He's the designer. But Lee Iacocca and Carroll Shelby are both here. This is like doing it all over again with some other players involved, but it's crazy. Dodge Viper was produced from 1992 to 2017 in 5 generations. Our car is the SR2, or the second generation, which was produced from 1996 to 2002. Let's talk specs. 175.2 inches long, 75.6 inches wide, 43.5 inches tall. It rides a wheelbase of 96.3 inches, weighs 3,318 pounds. Price was $58,605, which was equivalent to you spending $110,677.54 in the year 2022. This thing will go 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds, does the quarter mile in 13 seconds, top speed 170 miles per hour. Total 1996 Dodge production was 280,416 units, of which 1,234 of them were Roadster Vipers. They did offer a new version of Viper. It was called the GTS Coupe. It came out mid-year in 1996. They only produced 231 units. Moving on to the engine, 488.1 cubic inch displacement, V10, 8 liters, 415 horsepower at 5,200 RPM. It produced 488 foot-pounds of torque at 3,600 RPM with a bore of 4 inches and a stroke of 3.9 inches. Compression was 9.1 to 1. The block material as well as crankcase was made out of aluminum, and it also featured aluminum heads. Transmission on offer. Only one transmission was available. 6-speed manual Borg Warner T56. So coming up to the door here, notice there isn't any door handles on the outside. Door handles are on the inside. This car is lockable. The lock is right here. But as you can see, the issue with that is, I guess, if you're walking up to it and you don't see handles there, then, you know, nobody's gonna mess with your car. But if you know that there's a handle here, and all you have to do is unlock it first and then pull the door handle, and then the door opens. Let's talk about this door panel. Notice the seatbelt is on the door panel itself. Door handle to pull the door closed, as well as armrest. There's a nice little speaker here, as well as a speaker down here. This is the door handle with the lock feature. All right, I'm going to show what it's like getting in this thing, because it's got a really big sill. I'm not sure if you can see it. It's actually easier getting into than it is getting out of. So this is the seating situation. There isn't a whole lot of room underneath the steering wheel, but that's okay. There is a tilt wheel feature function, so you can move it up like that. That gives me plenty of room. But notice my knees in relationship to the dashboard. This is where my knees are, and it becomes a problem, especially like whenever, so turn signals are right here. If you turn the turn signals on, sometimes they don't cancel and you have to push it back up. It hits your knee. Everything's on this stock here. The windshield washers, the mist feature, the windshield washers, the bright lights, turn signals, everything is on that one stock. There's an information center here. Check engine, seatbelt, engine light. Brake light, and then there's a shift. Little arrow will pop up every now and then. Perfect shift. I'm gonna rev it here. That's what the horn sounds like. Here's the over the hood impression. This is what it looks like sitting right behind the wheel. Here's the first person impression. This car has a really annoying feature. It has a key locking cylinder. There's a button on the bottom of the key cylinder. Can you see me pushing it there? To get the key to come out, unless you push this button, rotate it half a turn, and then, well, not half a turn, but like a quarter of a turn, and then it comes out. I think that is the stupidest feature, and I'm so glad cars don't have that anymore. Let's walk through the gauges. Speedometer, odometer at the top, tripometer at the bottom. Then this is the RPM gauge, temperature, oil pressure, gas, amp. So this car's got air conditioning as well as heat. Here's the fan control and the air conditioning control and different places you'd like the air to go. Cigarette lighter here. These are lights. And these are the headlights. Emergency brakes here. Cigarette ashtray is there. Sun visor situation. There's no vanity mirrors, but just notice how small these are. Nice rear view mirror here. No vanity mirrors on that one either, but they're very thick. Here's what I look like. Top's not on it. My head is way higher than my head is about that much taller than the top. So I look kind of stupid driving it because I don't really fit in it. Another thing I want to point out real quick is just notice this windshield. It's a wraparound windshield. I think it might be the only 90s car that features a wraparound windshield. In the comment section below if there is another car that you could think of that has a wraparound windshield such as this. This car seating position feels just like the Jaguar XKE that we were in not too long ago, especially this whole wraparound windshield design. It definitely feels like that. Getting out, so you hit the door handle there, door opens about that wide. Now getting out is a bit tricky because right here, that is how wide the door sill is. That's my hand for reference. There is a warning, avoid contacting this area. Well, what happens if you hit this area? Well, whoever engineered this was brilliant, and let me tell you, because this is the second gen of this vehicle. I'm gonna take the key out so it stops doing that. The first gen, the exhaust actually exited right back there, right before the wheel. They decided that that was sort of dangerous because this would get really hot. Well, they moved the exhaust to the back. It exits out of the rear, but the pipes still come here. So if you drive this for a long period of time, this gets really hot, and it's really hard to get out without hitting this, as I'm going to show you. All right, this is getting out. So you kind of have to put your leg over it like that without hitting your leg on this. This is like hot lava when you were a kid. Don't touch the lava. But it's super hard because that's where your leg wants to go. So you kind of have to scoot out to here, bring your other leg out, scoot out more, and then when you're to about here, you have to just stand up. It's so much harder than it really needs to be. Also want to talk about how light this door is. It's so light. It feels like fiberglass. That's all. It doesn't even feel like it weighs 10 pounds. So you don't have to slam this door. Shuts good. All right, moving on to the glove box test. Here's our test subject. Here's my hand for reference. Now, if the camera does not fit in the glove box, does that mean it's a bad car? No. I just love showing this huge camera can fit in small, tight spaces. That's all this is, really. It just shows you how big glove boxes used to be versus how big they are now. So, fits in there good. So just check out that rear view glass. It's not very big. That's all the visibility that you could really see out of the back. Just to show you what that's like in the back. That's like your visibility. That's it. So seeing behind you is kind of a challenge in this car. Coming back here to the rear, to the trunk section, I want to show you this. So you turn the key and it makes no sound whatsoever if you unlocked this trunk. It almost feels like you didn't unlock the trunk. But you just pull it up. This is the most weirdest trunk I've ever seen in my life. So this trunk will not stay up on its own. It just wants to shoot right back down. So how do you hold the trunk open? Well, the trunk's got a trunk prop, and it just kind of sits in this little indentation right there. I don't know if you can see it right there, just a little tiny indentation. And that is how the trunk stays open. Now, you're probably wondering, what the heck are these things? So this car is a traditional roadster in the truest sense of the word. These, when the top is up, these are side curtains, and that's what this looks like. They slide down inside here, and then they clip onto the top. So that is the side curtain situation, and it all buckles into the top. But notice you slide like this. There is a key cylinder on the driver's side one. We'll go ahead and just put it on real quick just so you can see what it looks like. I'm not going to put the top back on because it was not fun getting off, and I could only imagine. All right, so I lied. That's why we do this, to make sure. This does not have a key cylinder. I thought it did, so that adds to it. So you can't really lock this car, because anybody can come up here, just slide this open like this. And I mean, like, there is a locking feature inside there, which we already showed, but just reach your hand inside here and pop her open. And that's that. But also, I want to show you, so that's my hand for reference and size of this hole. I don't think that you'd be able to get a McDonald's cheeseburger Happy Meal through this window, which could be a problem for somebody. That could legitimately be a deal breaker for someone. But just to show you how ridiculous the side curtains look from the top angle. All right, so the side curtains are tucked back in there. We're gonna shut the trunk. Just by moving this prop back up here. Coming down inside the pedal box here, you could tell how tight everything is. Here's the clutch, brake, gas pedal. Notice the hood release is not underneath here. It's actually in the front. All right, coming up here to the under the hood section. This is one of the craziest hoods to open. So there's a lever in there that actually says hood on it. It's right inside here, right there. So you pull it down and that pops it. There is a lever over here. You have to push down on this and then push this, and then it goes up to that position. Once it's in that position, then you come back here and you open it up the rest of the way. it's heavy and you got to do it from the center. This is the largest piece. It was. So the crazy thing about this car is, okay, look at this piece. That is one solid piece of fiberglass. It's the most expensive part of this whole car. Is if the hood gets messed up, it will cost you a fortune for another one because it's not seamed or pieced together. It's one piece. Now we're gonna shut it. It's basically the same thing, only in reverse. So always, especially on something this big, make sure you try to grab this from the center. It's going to get hard because this part back here is longer than the part in the center. So when it gets to about here, you'll have to get out of where you were, come back over here, push down very slowly, very gingerly. Okay, so it goes in like that. Come back up here to the front. So that's one latch. Then you got to push it. There it goes. It latched into place and it's good. Yep. All right, we're in second gear. I want to show you how much pull this thing has. I'm getting on the on-ramp real quick. Make sure nothing's coming. Not that I know what that feels like, just saying that this shifter is weird. The second thing I don't like about it is the gauges. The gauges all look like they're aftermarket gauges. This interior has definitely aged well over time. This is from the 90s, mid-90s. But the gauges look like I could just go to Summit Racing and put those gauges in. It's got AC, it's got... The top situation's weird. This car does not have roll-up windows. It's got side curtains. And the windows are sliding operating windows that you couldn't get a McDonald's cheeseburger Happy Meal through. That's how small they are. But the top, if the top is on this car and you're tall, your head is hitting the roof. You gotta remember, it gives you, it lulls you into a false set of security, but it will bite your dick off if you're not careful. And I'm trying to be careful. My counterpart here, he's like, go faster, go faster, he'll go faster. Why aren't you going faster?
Hey, I'm gonna defend myself here for. I'm trying to get him to enjoy the experience of this V10. Not every day do you get the chance to drive a 96 Dodge Viper with a V10. Bro, enjoy it for the moment, because you're not gonna get this chance probably for a long time.
On to the pros and cons. I'm getting all of these pros and cons from the complete book of collectible cars, Blue Chip Auto Investments, 70 years from 1930 to 2000 by Richard M. Langworth and the Auto Editors of Consumer Guide. I will also add some more cons that aren't on this list from my personal opinion. Anyway, on to the positives. Neck snapping, acceleration, handling and road holding, sheer presence, relative rarity. Against it, noise, fuel economy, tiring to drive, insurance costs. This car has a lot of compromises. It is hard to get out of without burning your legs. It is also, it's not really tiring to drive, I wouldn't say, but the clutch doesn't engage until you're right off of it. And if you have long legs, doing that is kind of hard because your knees will hit the dashboard. And I'm 6'2", and I didn't really fit in this car. The windshield came up to right around the same place as most Roadster windshields come up on me. It's in the almost same position as a 54 Corvette. This car is incredible. I will say that, second gear is mostly a stepping stone gear in a lot of cars, not this car. This car, top of second gear, it really comes alive. And I could totally understand how people lose control of these cars, is because when you're coming out of second gear, going into third gear, and if you're at a high rate of acceleration and speed, the car actually starts to lift off the ground. It gets a little squirrely, and that's why this thing is like a snake. It can turn on you within an instant. One more con I'm going to point out before we move on to name that tune. This car is a high dollar car that you can't really lock. So just keep that in mind if you're thinking about buying one of these. There's also no ABS, no traction control. You got to really know how to drive this car. If you want to drive on it hard, just watch, because these are notorious for biting people. All right, on to name that tune. I'm looking for the name of the artist / band group, whatever, and the title of the song. First person to do that will have their comment pinned to the top of the comment section. And I will give you a hint. This is a 1996 song. That was an outside the box kind of song. This car is an outside the box kind of car for this channel, but I totally dig this car, even though it has its negatives. It's a lot more negatives than positives. But another fun fact about this car, Dodge Viper is my mom's dream car, and the fact that I got to drive it before her is just kind of special, right? Anyway, thank you all so much for coming out and watching this. I appreciate everything. If you could, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you dig this content. And until next time, toodaloo!